Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Forza Italian Football Podcast. I'm your host, Conor Clancy. I'm joined after a thrilling week of Serie A by Vito Doria. Vito, hello, how are you?
Hi Connor. I'm all right. Would have liked something better for my team, but it was a good round of Serie A action. And yeah, once again, here we are to review all the best moments.
Point against the champions, can't complain too much, really. Someone who will probably find reason to complain, however, is Kev Pogorzelski. Kev, welcome back. We had a nice little chat during the week on the Patreon preview pod, which some of our listeners will have heard. How are you keeping?
I'm good. I think we called most things correctly.
Hmm.
I can understand Vito's frustrations because Genoa winning this weekend means that even after losing their first two games, they've got more points than Samp already this season. So, not that I needed to bring that up, but
No, you didn't need to bring that up, particularly not less than a minute into the podcast. I think that's out of order, to be honest. But look, let's get into it. Before we do, however, I do just want to remind all of you guys listening who haven't signed up to our Patreon that you should probably do so. We've got €2, €5, and €10 tiers. As I've said on the podcast a couple of times now, the €5 tier is excellent value for money. And just last week alone, we had a lot of bonus content from the Serie A newsletter, which goes out every single Tuesday. To last week, we had the Azzurri podcast special. Dov Schiavone joined me, and he was his typical negative self about the team who have just set a new world record for unbeaten matches in international football. And then Kev and I, as we just alluded to, met for a Serie A preview pod, and I think we did quite well, actually, Kev. We picked three games. Two of them definitely lived up to expectation, and I called Fiorentina beating Atalanta. You called Napoli beating Juventus, and I can't remember what we said about the Milan Lazio game, but we said it was going to be fun, which it undoubtedly was. But there you go. That's what you've got to do. So, guys, do please head over to Forza. Oh, I've done it again, Kev. Head over to patreon.com/Forza Italian Football. And please do sign up, contribute whatever you can. Don't worry, these podcasts will be continually available going forward. But if you just want that little bit extra Italian football coverage in your lives, well, head over to Patreon and sign up there. The results then from this weekend's round. It was round 3. Empoli lost at home 2-1 to Venezia. Napoli beat Juventus 2-1. Atalanta lost 2-1 to Fiorentina. Samp and Inter drew 2-2 in Sunday's early game. Cagliari threw away a 2-goal lead to an inspired Genoa comeback to lose 3-2. Torino beat Salernitana 4-0. Spezia lost 1-0 to Udinese. Milan beat Lazio 2-0. Roma, in dramatic fashion, beat Sassuolo 2-1. And Bologna host Hellas Verona on Monday evening. But what we're going to start with in part 1 is the game of the weekend. It's Napoli Juventus. Vito. Napoli beat Juve 2-1, and it's a real statement win for the Partenopei. Beating Juventus, of course, means a lot to everybody, but it means a little bit more if you're from Napoli.
Absolutely, just the symbolicness and the whole north and south divide. It's still strong today. So for the Partenopei to get a win against the Juventus, this would mean more than defeating any other Northern Italian side, and especially the most successful Serie A team in history. So it really is one to be proud of. It was a game that the Partenopei dominated, even though they were trailing early on through that goal by Alvaro Morata. They just had a lot more of the possession, and in the second half, I noticed a lot more. They looked more composed on the ball and had far more determination to get the 3 points.
It was a completely deserved 3 points, though, from Napoli, right? Juve were doing quite a classic Allegri thing early on, but it just wasn't enough. And Napoli, Vito, were deserving of the win.
Most certainly, because with the skills on the ball they were the way they were linking up. I think the players that Napoli have really suit Spalletti's style of coaching in comparison to what he had to work with Inter. Inter were perhaps a bit more mechanical on the eye, and he had to build his attack around Icardi. This time, you can see, from the goalkeeper to the defense, midfield, and attack. There aren't many weak spots in that team. We could go on about that, but the way that team is, I mean, you've got Ruiz controlling the midfield, Anguissa, who's a debutant, he played well. So in midfield, they've got those parts. Look, Insigne wasn't at his very best, but he still had a good performance, still serviceable. And also in the second half, well, Spalletti had to make some changes at half time. And I think that also made an impact too. That made them a bit more unpredictable. And also with Osimhen not getting much of a chance on goal, it was important that the other players stepped up, especially if you look at the equaliser, Politano just sneaking around the back there, shrugging off Rabiot and getting the ball in from a tight angle, despite Szczesny trying in vain to catch the ball. Sometimes if one player's not going to score in, it's always good to have other contributors making the difference.
I was quite impressed by Anguissa's performance, to be honest. On a debut to play like that, I thought was very noteworthy. And he's not a player that I know all that much about. I don't watch all that much Premier League football, to be perfectly honest with you. But the guy who, as he tends to when this fixture comes around, stole the show was Kalidou Koulibaly. I don't know what it is about this game, but he loves decisive goals, whether it's for Juventus or for Napoli.
Yeah, you think he's known for his sort of defensive solidity and becoming that sort of focal point of the Napoli defence over the last few years. But when he sort of pops up with a goal, they just always tend to be against Juve, whether it was 2018 when it looked like it was going to maybe lead Napoli to the title, which was not to be, or the late own goal a couple of years later. I would have liked to have seen if he could have just kind of not touched the ball and sort of see if it would backspin back in, because it would have made for a phenomenal own goal from Moise Kean. But he's just got something about this fixture, and it's one of those where typically a bit in Higuain fashion, you'd think, oh, he'll run his contract down and end up at Juve scoring goals to them, but hopefully not. But it was perfect for the big man to sort of step up and tap the ball home for the winner.
Koulibaly wouldn't do that, surely. Surely not.
I'd be surprised. He seems to have a little bit more about him than maybe our friend Gonzalo.
That's a bit harsh, and given the fact that you've called me Gonzalo countless times, I'm going to take that as a personal attack, so thanks very much, Kev. We do have a question. We will get to more questions a little bit later on from our patrons, but just to start, because it's relevant to this game, Marco Jackson has written in and asked, have Napoli already fatally punctured Juventus' season? Vito, what do you think about that?
It's too early to make a call like that because we're only 3 rounds in. And also, if Juve, especially under Allegri, have shown in the past is that even after a bad start, they can finish the season well. As that old saying goes, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So in this case, it really is something that's going to take a bit of time. What it does do, this result, is it does set Napoli up pretty well, gives them a bit of momentum, and it's a real confidence boost on their part, especially with Spalletti being in his first season with the club, still trying to get to know the players. They're buying into his ideas quickly, and so far they're playing well. Juventus, I don't think it's more about certain results that are going to be decisive. It's more just over the course of time. When you look at this team, especially when you consider that a lot of the team is getting old, and some of the players that have come in over the years have, let's just be honest, been mediocre at best. And they're really not going to be players that are going to take you over to the next level, help them rebuild for the future. It seems that Ronaldo was really papering over the cracks. At least having a player of his caliber, at least he was scoring the goals. But there were other weaknesses that weren't being addressed properly or sufficiently. So again, with this result, I'll say no, it hasn't punctured the season entirely, but at the moment, it's good for Napoli's momentum, but also bad for Juve's.
Yeah, Kev. Well, Vito was talking about the fact that it's early, and it is almost unprecedented for Juventus to be this bad at the start of the season. I mean, in the last 51 years, they have only once failed to win their opening 3 Serie A games. That came, of course, in 2015-16, and the coach then was, of course, Mr. Massimiliano Allegri, and they did, of course, go on to win the title. So do people just need to give it a few more weeks, maybe?
Oh, they definitely need to give it a few more weeks. I think the 2015-16 season was quite different to this one because of just how good that squad was in comparison. Obviously, Vito just made the point about the recruitment that maybe hasn't gone quite as they would have expected, particularly I think with picking up young Italian talent, and maybe they've been unfortunate, maybe they've been a little bit too keen to grab players from other Serie A sides.
Have you done that on purpose?
No, because I can't think what I've done, so I've clearly not done it on purpose.
You said they were keen to grab players, and I thought you were going with that pronunciation of Moise Ken Keane's name.
No, I'm still going by the Ken.
Okay, good.
Even if he decided to choose it when he moved to English football for whatever reason. But yeah, no, I think it's far too early in the season at the moment to worry too much about them challenging for the title. I think it is a sign that they will struggle to maintain a title challenge. But at the moment, what is it, 8 points with quick math.
Don't do that.
35 games still to go. I think if they were still 8 points off of whoever's top when half of the season's gone, then yeah, if I was a Juventus fan, I'd be kissing my total hopes goodbye.
The thing is, though, Allegri has chopped and changed quite a lot already this season, and that's maybe I'm misremembering it, but that's not something I would have associated with him before. I mean, as far as personnel and the formation go, he's not really been all that consistent, although some changes this weekend were forced rather than chosen. But is that something that you think should be applauded from Allegri, or is it just quite an obvious sign that he doesn't really know what his best team is at the moment?
I think you can applaud it slightly. When he came in for the first time, he was taking on Antonio Conte's certainly growing, if not already strong, starting 11. I don't think there's any problem with him necessarily. I wouldn't see it as a sign that he doesn't know what he's doing necessarily. I think it is certainly a sign that he doesn't know what his best 11 are. I think there's players in the past that he's probably come in and thought, they're nailed down starters, regardless of whatever they show me in training. There's a history of them, performing at such a level that that's the sort of spine of the team, or at least crucial positions within the team are filled, and then he just has to kind of work out which players he wants to either bring in or those that will execute his game plan as he wants it to be executed. And I think probably at the moment he's thinking maybe 7, 8, if not all of them. He really isn't sure about what his best 11 are, just to pick up as many points as they can now from the start to the end of the season, so then they can have maybe a little bit more of a reshuffle during the summer.
Okay, that'll do it for part 1. Part 2, then, the only obvious place to go to is Milan, right? Because it was probably the second biggest game of the weekend, and any other weekend it would have been the biggest. Milan, of course, beat Lazio 2-0, and Vito, this is a sign of the Rossoneri sending a real message. We had praised Lazio time and again already this term, but Milan, I mean, I don't want to exaggerate, but they made light work of them.
it was important for Lazio to have a test and get it early. They've had that, and they did not succeed. What Milan showed is that they're a stronger team than probably what most people are giving them credit for. Perhaps maybe we haven't given them enough credit, but so far they're maintaining that good run they've had since Pioli's been the coach, and also with the options that are available to them, they're still able to produce results, and they're looking like a really good side at the moment, the Rossoneri.
Well, Kessie's back, right? But they did also start with Rebic, Romagnoli, and Florenzi in the starting 11. That is just a reflection of the depth they have there now, right? That they could play those players in this game and still win comfortably.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If
Vito, go.
if they can rotate their squad and those players can step right in, I think that's a very positive sign. I mean, you look at Rebic; he usually plays in the same position as Leao on left wing, but they can play as the lone striker. Then Romagnoli, let's be honest, I think last season he was showing that he had a bit of form issues, especially with injury and all that. And Tomori stepped in, was fantastic. So if he can step in here and there, he can still perform a role in the team and be a solid performer. And Florenzi, yeah, I think he's had a bit of stick in the last few years, but I reckon in this team, regardless if he plays right back or right wing, he might be able to put in a good, solid performance and just put in a hard-working shift.
Do you know what? I feel really bad for Florenzi because when he was at Roma, he got lumped back to right back despite not being a right back. And then for some reason, it just stuck. And he has become a right back despite never having been an actual right back. And now he's getting the opportunity to play a right wing with years of practice doing the job that he was made to do, probably against his will, but he's too nice to say otherwise. So, yeah, I feel bad for him. But I'm sure he doesn't really care that much, to be honest. Kev, Zlatan is back, came back off the bench to score, and didn't take him too long, but it was always going to go this way, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those sort of kind of easy narratives. I think if you're sort of sitting there and you know a player like them is coming back into the fold, and it is slightly easier with strikers, particularly let's say where Zlatan's playing on the last shoulder or just making sure he's in the box to sort of pick stuff up. A little bit more difficult if you're maybe an aging sort of centre half who comes back and you want him to sort of have a clean sheet, and they're kind of dependent on the other defenders around them or goalkeepers not sort of making a mistake. That said, it wasn't as if they were playing Salernitana or a bottom half of the table side, and you can kind of throw them on to almost get that goal as would be expected on someone's return. But it was kind of laid on a plate for him by Rebic.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he couldn't have missed it, but I'm not sure if another player would have moved as well as him to make that pass. I don't know. Is there a word? Like, Rebic could not decide to not play that pass because of Ibra's movement. Once he went there, he had to put that through. And it was excellent. Really good experience play from the big man, which we've come to expect over the years, despite how insufferable he can sometimes be. Kev, you tweeted about a bit of an incident after this game, and I can't work it out, to be honest with you, because there was a bit of a coming together. I don't know if we can even call it that, because it never really escalated to be as much. But when the full-time whistle went, Ibrahimovic just kind of grabbed Lucas by the back of his neck, and I'm assuming he squeezed or something, because Lucas wasn't happy about it. And then it all just kicked off, didn't it?
Yeah, somebody said that it was kind of kicking off for other things that had gone on. I saw the footage, and then it was one of those. He's clearly, Lucas has gone in for the challenge. I think he's probably made the challenge. Ball's gone out of play. Ibrahimovic has sort of grabbed him behind it. He's clearly squeezed him or done something to then antagonise Lucas. But I think what annoyed me most on social media is it's the whole kind of Zlatan Ibrahimovic fan club. It's like, oh, he's showing him who's boss and all this. It's like, but it's very much that playground kind of bully mentality that, oh, look at me, I'm bigger than you, I can sort of, shake your hand and squeeze it or just hold you. And I just thought, I commented, as much as you shouldn't do this at home, children, that Lucas should have just stuck one on him, because those sorts of people that have kind of just got this overwhelming sort of bully boy tactic and kind of built up this persona of not, everybody else kind of goes with them because they don't want to sort of stand up and go, look, just stop being a knob, will you? It's just like, just leave it. There's no even need to grab him. And it's sometimes the only thing they ever respond to rather than resort to.
Isn't that just what Zlatan Ibrahimovic has become?
Oh, it is, yeah, and that's one of the few things, if you like, that makes people maybe dislike him. But I've got allegiances for my little friend Lucas.
You do? Well, you love Lucas, don't you? So were you happy when you saw little Pedro pop up and diffuse the situation? I thought Pedro did excellently there because he was quite clearly behind Zlatan, so you couldn't see him. But then he just comes into shot over or to the right of his shoulder, and you can see him shouting his name. And Zlatan's probably at the point of his career now where at the end of every game everyone's shouting his name, so he doesn't hear it too much. But then Pedro just grabs him and is just giving him a big old smile, and then Zlatan just starts smiling and they have a little hug, and I thought fair play to Pedro there.
Pedro must have had something on him from that sort of brief 12-month stint at Barcelona together, maybe.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, don't start, Zlatan, or I'll tell him about that time in the locker room.
Yeah, well, there are pretty unfounded, but there are some whispers about Zlatan Ibrahimovic's time at Barcelona, but I do think most of it is just an attempt to get under his skin, which it probably would if he ever saw it. But I'm sure he's seen it by now. It's pretty impossible for him to have missed out on that one. But good win for Milan. They've got a 100% record. Vito, it's just them and Napoli now who still have that 100% record 3 games in. And yeah, like you kind of said earlier, they're just still marching on under Pioli, really.
It's, pardon me, it's been a very good run for them, and they're not scraping through games. Maybe against Samp it was a bit of a struggle, but against Cagliari they were just completely dominant, and I think they were being a bit generous on Cagliari to stop at 4 goals. They probably could have scored more if they tried in the second half, but that first half they were just absolutely superb. And even in this game against Lazio, they probably should have scored more than 2 goals. And it didn't look like Lazio offered much of a threat, which is probably a bit of a shame considering the great start they had. But these early tests, like I said earlier, that's what Sarri and his boys really need. And hopefully for their sake, they learn from it. Whereas with Pioli and his group, yeah, it's about continuity, and if they maintain this, especially in the second half of the season, because that's probably one thing they failed to do last season. If they can continue the good form after the Christmas break, then it might set them up nicely for another Champions League spot or even another title.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows? Well, that'll do for part 2. In part 3, we're going to go to the champions. They couldn't make it 3 wins from 3, despite going a goal up twice at Marassi. Inter, of course, went away to Sampdoria and drew 2-2. Kev, blowing 2 leads to draw. I mean, it's not great, and you would be hard-pressed to argue that Inter actually deserved anything more than a point.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can even call it well, clearly you can literally call it blowing 2 leads. But I'm not actually sure they deserve to be in front. The way, the balance of play and sort of how much dominance Sampdoria had throughout the game, it would have been more to kind of script that Inter sort of grasp something back out of this game, because Samp could have gone ahead as early as 4 minutes. The defence was just really, really sluggish, like a lot of Inter's play on the day. Forsby just sort of wandered in between two defenders and sent a header over the bar. The free kick that DeMarco took and scored wonderfully well was not really a free kick, although close to the end of the first half, there was actually a more robust challenge by Coley on Martinez that probably could have been a free kick in exactly the same place. So maybe you say that those two even themselves up. And actually, it was a little bit of sort of sluggishness on Sampdoria's part that allowed Çalhanoğlu to rob the ball from Damsgaard and then into the breakaway and Martinez's finishes. But while Samp had a bit of luck with the Yoshida goal, although I still think that it was such a deflection of Dzeko, I'd give it as an own goal. Samp would have been extremely disappointed to sort of walk away with that without any points from that game, and Inter probably leave feeling very lucky. And considering they lost their last season, it was one of the, they only lost against Milan and Juventus last season and dropped points against Samp, so they probably might take a point, considering it's on the back of a very condensed international break. I'm not sure how hot it was in Genoa, but it looked lovely. The sun beaming down on the Luigi Ferraris.
We had 32, I think, here today. So Genoa, is just straight across. You get that little bit of a coolness from the sea, of course, but it wouldn't have been cool, let's say. It would have been quite hot, and it's always hotter at pitch level too, isn't it? But we will talk about the Sampdoria perspective on this just in a little moment. I do want to talk about that Lautaro Martinez goal into a second, because from start to finish, the whole thing was just beautiful. But the way he finishes that off, it's just the latest example from this goal all the way back to his first, which was, I think, wasn't it a preseason friendly against Atletico? And he just does these stupidly athletic, technically impossible things and makes them look so simple.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say the pass from Barella didn't make it easy to finish that. Sorry, go Vito. I'm jumping in.
That's okay. Because I was still deciding, should I praise Inter for the way they executed their attack, or how poorly Samp did to actually not stop that movement in the first place? Because I did tweet about that. Because, you can praise how good Inter were from the way Çalhanoğlu managed to win the ball back, and Barella, if we're to praise him, he did a great job to sort of run up the field and play the pass to Lautaro. And then Lautaro, he's a quick player, hard worker, and he does have that technique as well. So to get into that spot and finish off like he did, Aldero didn't have much of a chance to save it. So from that perspective, the counter-attack was very well executed. As it's clear, I do have my biases. I thought Damsgaard was very weak to let Çalhanoğlu win the ball off like that, because I don't really associate Çalhanoğlu with that kind of play. And I think Damsgaard should have been a lot smarter, if not a lot stronger in that situation. Algello tried to put in a tackle, and look, Barella, he's not the tallest guy, but he is strong. But in saying that, that's very poor defending on Gello's part. He should be able to read the play more and get into a better position to at least put in a proper tackle. And then, if we, not just that goal, but in general, some central defense was pretty open. So I think Inter, with the players they've got, especially someone like Lautaro, it's easy to expose the space. So in that situation, Samp really did commit defensive suicide there, because as Lautaro showed, he's going to bury those chances.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was expecting you to cry foul on the challenge from Damsgaard, but I saw your tweet, Vito, and I thought, wow, he's been very very good to Çalhanoğlu for the challenge, because I thought you were kind of scathing of Damsgaard's sort of physical ability of shielding the ball, if we like, and I thought, Vito's where Samp's concerned, Vito has got a sort of an unbiased bone in his body, which I haven't seen before.
He just went down too quick. Simple as that. So I was disappointed with Damsgaard on that, especially what he's done last season, and especially after the Euros he had. I'm expecting a lot better from him.
Yeah, you would. If you're getting muscled off the ball by Hakan Çalhanoğlu, you've got to be asking questions of yourself. And having watched Roberto da Versa's teams very, very closely for the last 3 years, I'm telling you, he's not going to be happy about Damsgaard losing the ball like that. What I liked about that goal, though, was Barella and Çalhanoğlu basically did each other's jobs, right? Because Çalhanoğlu did what Barella usually does, and Barella did what Çalhanoğlu's been signed to do, and beat a couple of players and then put a ball into the box to be finished off. But Kev, I know this is something that you were a little bit annoyed, maybe, about. I felt similarly that Federico Di Marco finally started for Inter, but he started at left centre-back, which, given what he did at the other end of the pitch when he was allowed to go down there, was a bit frustrating.
Yeah, admittedly, I saw the team sheet and I thought, oh, that's great. I'm going to see Di Marco in an Inter shirt, because I was really impressed with him when I saw him for Hellas Verona last season. Then I realised, because I pay very little attention to international football, that Bastoni had got injured, and Inzaghi was actually playing him in the the left-hand side of a back three. On the goal, just excellently executed. You think he's gone the side which the wall are not covering, and the accuracy and the pace at which he sort of hit that ball with was just phenomenal. It's like, it reminds me of probably a sort of a FIFA console game 10, maybe 15 years ago, where you could sort of see the arch of the ball, and all you had to really do was just hold the button down, and it was it. It was going to be a goal. But I do think, in hindsight, they missed a little bit of a trick playing him there, because Perisic was probably one of the worst players on the pitch for Inter. And you've got Dzeko, who's, he's not very mobile these days, but he's got some kind of aerial prowess, and they really didn't make any inroads down that left-hand side. And I think it was kind of just crying out for, to maybe have Di Marco have a go along that left-hand side, because they were a little bit disjointed at the back, but Skriniar and De Vrij were handling most things that came their way, and you could have probably even thrown an Asian Kolarov on just to kind of get Di Marco further up the pitch and sacrifice Perisic, because he did very little. But hopefully he'll get some chances further up the field. But I actually don't think he did his chances any harm, because I think it was a performance where Inzaghi can feel confident in the job he would do there later in the season if needed. Because I think Bastoni's going to be out for Real Madrid Tuesday or Wednesday this week in the Champions League, so he may have to fill in again.
He might well do. On the free kick, I thought it looked like Audero set his wall up for a right-footed player. I don't know what he was expecting there. Like, you see Di Marco step up.
But Çalhanoğlu was there, so he probably did, considering everything he's probably worked on in a week is probably watching free kicks from Çalhanoğlu and not even really expected Di Marco to play. So I can kind of understand that. But anywhere else, or maybe a little bit less pace on the ball, I think Aldero's fine. He sort of picks that up or tips it over, but it was a superbly hit set piece.
I don't know, Vito, you might be able to answer this. It's not a real question, but I'll let you come in on it when I throw over to Sam. But I don't think Audero ever just has a normal game. He either does something that I think he should have done better there, or he just plays out of his skin like he did against Sassuolo, the game I was at. But I do want to come to you for the Sampdoria perspective on this, because you said you were a little bit disappointed with the result, but in most circumstances, a draw against the champions would be seen as a decent outcome.
Well, from that perspective, it is good, considering that Inter are the reigning Serie A champions. But it's just based on the way Samp played. Eventually, we just threw the kitchen sink at them, and I was surprisingly impressed with the performance, because my expectations of Samp under Da Versa have been very low. The way we played, we showed determination, we showed energy, but we played with a lot of flair as well. And quite a few players were playing, above their skins or under the skins. I'm getting that expression wrong, but Berezzinski is a player that's much maligned, and we've criticised him before. But I thought he played very well today. He did a great job to set up the equaliser for Augello, and he was just doing some things on the ball I didn't think he was able to do. Kandreva was both a pleasure and a frustration in equal amounts. his energy and determination, even at 34, is fantastic. But he can still put in a bad cross, and at the last moment, Yoshida was free. He had no one on him. He probably could have scored the winning goal and got his brace, but Candreva decided to be a ball hog, and he gets tripped. So that really infuriated me. I mean, I could do a Vito bench just on that. I mean, he should have passed to him. And I thought that was there and then. And then D'Ambrosio with that goal line clearance. Unbelievable. He pulled that out of nowhere too. Danilo D'Ambrosio with that. So I thought that Inter were there for the taking. We left gaps in defence, but Inter weren't putting many shots on target. But surprisingly, we were playing with a lot of confidence on the ball, doing all these flicks, aerial balls. Just the combination play was absolutely superb. And that was even with Ciccio Caputo and Fabio Quagliarella not playing particularly well. So if they can somehow turn things around, surely that first win of the season's around the corner. And despite not getting the win, I think there was so much to like about that performance, and I thought we really deserved the winners. And especially seeing that Stefano Sensi was basically a passenger in the last 10 minutes, going down to 10 men. I thought Inter were definitely there for the taking and probably were fortunate to get a point to take back to Milan.
So I was going to make 2 points. I'm actually going to make a third because I've forgotten about Sensi that Vito just mentioned. Firstly, with your Samp hat on, and I know your answer because I saw your tweet about this, Vito. What was Candreva doing with that booking? It was horrific. Don't you? But don't you think the Ogello goal comes off his shin? The more and more I watch the slow-mos, it hits his shin as much as its foot. It's the truest strike I've ever seen come off of somebody's joint of shin and sort of foot. Anyway, so that's just me poking fun at Sam a little bit. But with Sensi, when we kind of flip it back to Inter, I was getting more infuriated that they left him on the pitch. But I do think it's a sign that, well, do I think Conte would have done any different? Maybe not, but that it's admittedly like a jarring tackle on the knee. But you take the lad off, he's clearly in discomfort, and having him out there just shows some sort of conscious or subconscious fear that they can't get through that game with 10 men. Whereas I think an Inter side, the Inter of the back end of last season would have played with 10, not taken a risk on the player, and probably seen the game out. And there was just something in there that, I don't know, maybe it just says something to the other 10 players that are fit and active that we're not going to be able to get through this without having somebody that was got limping around terribly like he was. And I don't think it's good for the player. And I don't think it's good for the other guys
I think you're right to raise that, actually, because it wasn't just a player. It was Stefano Sensi, who has just been a walking injury for the last 2 years. And he missed out on the Euros after getting called up into the squad because he got injured in the first day or two of the training camp, having been quite lucky to get called up in the first place because he barely kicked the ball last season. And I thought it was really irresponsible, actually. And I know our friend Nima shared her opinions on that. He was fuming. And you can't blame him there. I thought that was pretty poor. And I'm sure that Inzaghi will say that, I don't know, his medical team said it was okay or whatever, but I wasn't best pleased with that because it was Sensi of all players as well. He needs very, very careful management. I mean, he's a bit like Roberto Inglese here at Parma in that he can't get onto a pitch without getting injured. So if he looks like he's injured, get him off.
Yeah, and it's one of those where you probably understand it just because of kind of the character of Conte if it had been last season, where, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of put Conte in this in this sort of group of managers that are very much, I want 110% and you sort of stick it out. And, unless your leg's hanging off, you're not coming off the pitch. Whereas Inzaghi kind of always comes across as a more considerate coach and maybe would take the players' welfare, into account first. But yeah, it wasn't. I was certainly getting annoyed at seeing it because it was just after a couple of minutes you realise how much you can visibly see how much discomfort the players in. And again, we spoke about Juve dropping as many points as they have this season. if Samp had gone on to win that game, Inter would have won that point back somewhere in the season. So it's just not worth it. But yeah.
We'll move on to talk about all of the rest of the Serie A action in part 4. There is only one place to start with the rest of the Serie A action, and it is, of course, with a certain Mister's 1000th game as a coach. Roma, in stoppage time, beat Sassuolo 2-1 through a Stefan El Shaarawy screamer. It was a beautiful goal. One of those goals that kisses the post and goes in the other side. It was so nice. But the celebration, the scenes, Mourinho was down under the curva with all of the players. Kevy's box office. How can you not like this?
When I saw earlier in the week it was going to be his 1000th game, my brain could only compute that meant a 1-0 win for Roma against Sassuolo. I'd forgotten all about the antics, the classic Mourinho antics back in 2004 when he went running off at Old Trafford with Porto. And then obviously Stefan El Shaarawy's wonderful goal, and then off he goes. And I just thought to myself, he has planned that. I know you love the box office, Jose, but you thought to yourself, this is week 3. This isn't Champions League qualification on match day 36 or whatever. This is like week 3. It's like he's made sure he's wearing trainers and tracksuit bottoms tonight rather than
No.
It's just, but he's definitely had that in the back of his mind, and he's probably been the last 20 minutes of the game. He's probably been looking at every attack. Roma go forward. 72 minutes. If we score now, I can't do it. Roma attack. 83 minutes.
I think you've lost your mind.
No, I think
but every time Mourinho does something, people say, he's planned that. You reckon he planned for them to be 1-1 against a really dangerous team going into stoppage time, and for El Shaarawy to pull that off?
No, I think he had in his mind. And I think we've all done it in whatever things or like. And you think, in this circumstance, I'm doing this. In other circumstances, I'm doing whatever. And it was such a great goal from Scamacca that was only marginally offside. I would have loved that to have counted, because it would have just blown that hole. It would have no longer have been a winner. Would have looked a little farcical, which it was farcical in a way. But yeah, I think Roma win 2-1 with exactly the same goals tonight on like 65 minutes. He doesn't make that run.
No, obviously he doesn't make the run.
No, but
obviously he doesn't. The reason he ran is because of the drama. It was a stoppage time winner.
The drama that he wants.
No, they won the match in stoppage time. Hang on, shut up for a minute. If he'd just stood there and given it a little fist pump, you'd have said, look at him. He's Mourinho. He thinks that he's too big for this win over Sassuolo in round 3, and he's not bothered celebrating it. It's amazing.
Because if he'd done that, we wouldn't be talking about it.
It's amazing. Yeah, but hang on. You'd be damn wrong if you think we're not talking about Mourinho every week on this podcast this season.
No, well, you made that clear when it signed in April last year. So whatever you and Jose have got going on,
I met him in McDonald's when I was a child, and it's left a permanent.
Did you?
Did I not tell you the story about
Mourinho? Toilets, did he? No.
Did I not?
He didn't take you off somewhere, did he?
No.
Your parents are with you?
Yeah, my dad was 5 feet behind my shoulder. I met Mourinho at the Gatwick Airport at McDonald's. Can we go off? We'll go off on a tangent for a second. So I was a kid, and me, my dad, and a load of his friends, I think some of my cousins and stuff were there. I'd been over to a game in London, and we were flying out that night to go back to Ireland. And we were just at the McDonald's all sitting at a table, and my dad's looking back at us all and nodding towards the table beside us, and we all just thought he was losing his mind, because it was just like a family at the table, like 2 young girls, a mother and a father. like, what's he doing? And next thing he starts whistling. We're like, what is going on? And then he came back and he was like, do you know who's at the table behind you? We're like, no. It's like, it was Mourinho. So I went up. I got sent up because I was the youngest, basically, with a pile of Chelsea matchday programs, being told, get him to sign these. So I went up and I must have had like 8 of them. And I asked him, like, oh, Mr. Mourinho, like, will you sign my programs? And sure enough, yeah, he obliged. He signed the first, and then I kept turning them to the bottom.
You turned into a small Victorian girl when you were asking him to sign the programs.
But it was quite nice because I kept, like, when he signed one, I'd put it to the bottom, and it was just like a never-ending pile, like a magician's scarf, basically. And when it got to the 4th, he just cracked up and he patted me on the head and he was like, "Good lad, did you enjoy the match?" And he was very nice. So yeah, Mourinho's.
I'm more disappointed you ate in McDonald's, if I'm honest. But there you go. We shouldn't be giving the brand any more airtime.
Advertisement.
It's McDonald's.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes any bit of difference. It's not like it's something that it might make a bit of difference to. McDonald's are going to be all right whether or not we mention them on the Forza Italian Football fucking podcast. Kev. I think we're
they're as evil as Jose Mourinho.
So they're brilliant, effectively. All right. Anyway, moving on. Vito, Atalanta lost 1. No, they didn't. They lost 2-1 to Fiorentina. All 3 goals were penalties. I did call this on the preview pod, but it's a big, big win for La Viola.
Well, it was, and what surprised me is that none of the goals came from open play; they're all penalties. I think with the type of teams that they are, with the coaches they have, there would have been more from open play. And generally speaking, Atalanta and Fiorentina games are actually usually pretty good on the ice. So, yeah, so that's my bit about them. But just about Fiorentina in particular, I think it's a positive start. As we've said a few times, under the presidency of Rocco Commisso, there's always been that sort of false hope or heavy expectations on them in the hope that they can try and become a really competitive side. But they've managed to get 2 wins out of 3. So I think it's a promising start for Italiano, and I'm not going to put big expectations on them as yet, but I think it's a good start for the new coach and some foundations for them to build on as the season progresses. And I think they do it with a sense of style, and to have a young striker like Dusan Vlahovic. He did score 2 penalties, but he's a good player in open play as well. So I think once he gets a few more goals in open play again, I think there'll be a lot of people singing his praises too.
Torino got a big win. They beat Salernitana. I've written Salerno on the running order I've just seen. They've beaten Salernitana 4-0. It was a very important 3 points for Toro.
Yeah, I think they need to pick up points against those sides around them. I'm not sure how big a win it is because Salernitana look like they were really going to struggle this year. I think the first 3 goals were all crosses into the box, so either they need to find themselves a commanding goalkeeper or a better centre half to clear some of those. But they kind of struggled to pick, though. When they went on that long run last season of not winning games, there were teams against relegation strugglers or Serie A newcomers where Torino really need to pick up some points to get not necessarily a bit of momentum, but just pick some points up to sort of lessen the gloom around the Stadio Olimpico. So it was quite important.
Empoli 1, Venezia 2. Venezia are off the mark, and it's a huge result because it was against a team they'll probably be fighting against relegation alongside.
In that context, it was definitely a big win, and it's quite incredible that Venezia got that win away to Empoli after Empoli got a win against Juve. Watching this game, I thought Venezia definitely deserved the 3 points. There were moments, especially in the second half, where Empoli tried to get into the game and attack, but Venezia were very impressive. They looked very confident on the ball. They attacked that pace, and I think Empoli were lucky to lose just by 1 goal, because I think if they were a bit more clinical, especially in the first half, Venezia, they definitely could have won by more. Jonsson, the Norwegian winger, should have scored 2 lovely goals, but instead, either his placement on the first shot wasn't good enough, and the second one, he just took too long to shoot. He probably should have just chipped the goalkeeper. Thomas Henry scored the first goal, good finish, and then played the pass for the second by Okereke, and that was a fantastic goal. Maybe Empoli should have done better, but for Okereke, who only had been on for a few minutes, score that solo goal, it was a fantastic finish. And one player to keep an eye out on is Gianluca Buzio, the Italian-American midfielder. Works incredibly hard, very strong in the challenge, but he's clean on the ball as well. So he's a very complete midfielder, a young midfielder. I think he's definitely a player to keep an eye out on.
For sure. Kev, you watched Udinese's 1-0 win at Spezia. Why?
Well, partly because it was the only one that the UK broadcaster was showing, and I was waiting for Stace to get ready to go to the pub. So that's it. What better reason isn't
Just
it?
go meet her at the pub. Go and get a couple of pints in early, I would advise. But how did it go? Udinese won 1-0.
Yeah, I kind of have been sort of not that positive on Udinese, and they weren't brilliant, but they played with a little bit more purpose than I think it's felt sometimes like their performances have kind of felt like how they are in the league over the last few years, just treading water and just doing the bare minimum. But Delafeu is having quite an interesting, sort of impressive start to the season, and there just seems to be a bit more purpose to their play.
Well, it's just part of your FIF contract, isn't it? That you're not allowed to be very positive or upbeat about Udinese. So I respect you for fulfilling that. Cagliari Genoa. Against the mighty Genoa. The Islanders went 2-0 up, and Vito's already rolling his eyes. But the mighty Griffones came fighting back, and they won 3-2. What a comeback! What a club! What a fantastic team, and what an impact from Mohamed Fares, Vito.
Why did Cagliari do that? Seriously. It's either they make comebacks or teams come back against them. That's what's happened over the last 2 years. But just to blow a 2-0 lead, that is embarrassing from Cagliari. As for Genoa, I think it's a real surprise that Fares, at all people, scored a brace because he's a left wing back. You'd expect him to at least set up a goal, but he's definitely become the definition of an unlikely hero. And then the youngster, Andrea Cambiaso, he provided 2 assists. One of his crosses was an assist for Mattia Desro's goal to pull it back to 2-1. So from the Grifone perspective, I suppose if they're having players that aren't expected to perform those kind of tasks and they're stepping up, that will help them survive relegation.
And of course, the final game of this weekend will be played on Monday night. Bologna host Verona, because there's already a packed midweek round and a Friday fixture. So we really did need that Monday night filled with pointless Serie A games. So thank you, Lega Serie A, for that great organisation. Anyway, let's head over to patreon.com/Forza Italian Football, where our lovely patrons have been sending us some questions. So there is one from Sonia, who says, long-time listener, first-time call. Oh, she's gone with that opener. Your Serie A Femminile coverage, it's complimentary. We'll skip ahead. And she wants to know, do you know what? That's a question I'm going to answer with Euan in the Femminile coverage. So stay tuned for that, and we will pop that in just after this. We'll go to Dev's question, and Dev wants to know, guys, with Juve in decline, I feel it's time for the South to lay claim for the Scudetto. What do you make of Napoli's decision or apparent willingness to sell Insigne and Koulibaly when they are giving their blood and soul for the Partenopei? It's a two-parted question there for you, Kev.
Yeah, and I think you can consider both sort of players kind of separately. Obviously, Koulibaly, well, they're both 30, so they're both approaching what is kind of the latter stages of their career. Koulibaly isn't a local, like Insigne. It feels a little bit like maybe De Laurentiis has realised that he's kind of missed the boat with when he probably could have maximised the profit they would have got for Koulibaly. Now, it wouldn't surprise me as maybe this summer, because clubs are taking a bit of a punt on, let's say, older footballers than maybe they were a decade ago, that they can still get some money for them. And the fans probably wouldn't worry too much about it, and it would allow them the finances to kind of reinvest some of that in the squad. And I think Insigne, if they don't do something this year with regards to the Scudetto, you could understand why maybe this is probably a very old reference, but thinking more of one club men like Batistuta that went and sort of got a little success with Roma in 2001. It's like, well, they probably because of the blood and sweat, as Dev says, they've given to the cause, that they actually probably wouldn't sort of hold it against them moving away to get, a Scudetto medal under their belts. But I think there was something that I saw online. I think you yourself, I think it was Thomas Reed, said about the Udinese kind of financing of, why haven't they reinvested that money? It's kind of a different thing with Napoli, because they've not cashed in on those two players. But I think we're in this era where as soon as somebody sees some money coming in, they want it to be spent. It's like, well, there are running costs, and the bubble that football's in at the moment can't go on forever. So that's why they'd be willing to sell the likes of Koulibaly and Insigne if it allowed them to sort of keep paying good wages for players they want to retain, who maybe aren't at the latter stages of their career. So I can see reasons for Napoli getting rid of one or both of them, and why you wouldn't begrudge one or both of them looking to move on.
Vito, Marco wants to know, was Mikkel Damsgaard staying at Sampdoria the best piece of transfer business that didn't happen over the summer? He's also put forward Andrea Belotti's staying at Torino as a possible competitor for that crown.
I'll quickly go to Belotti first, because with him, he's been linked with these moves. And then over the years, Urbano Cairo, the Granata president, has thrown these figures around that he wouldn't sell him for 80 million, for 100 million. Then now it's, 40 million. So either way, Belotti just looks settled at Torino. And we see these stories about Belotti going to X club or Y club or whatnot, but these moves don't eventuate. So I think with him, it's just a continuous cycle. When it comes to transfer rumours regarding Belotti and a transfer, I'm just going to believe it when I see it. If Roma does sign him one day, or he finally goes to Milan, or if Atalanta pulls one out of the hat, then I'll believe it when I see official confirmation from those respective clubs to say he's no longer a Torino player. Damsgaard, on the other hand, although his start at Samp this season hasn't been the best, for Samp to hold on to him has been fantastic, because he was great at the Euros. He's continued that form after the tournament with Denmark. He provided a few assists during the international break. And with the talent he possesses, I'm surprised that he's still on the books, because I think he can still have another very good season in Serie A. And he was linked with so many clubs. There were a number of high figures for him being thrown around. Instead of going for 20 or 25, there was speculation of him going between 40 and 50. So for some to hold on to someone of his caliber, his talents, and after what he did at the Euros, I think I think he might be the difference between Samp sort of battling relegation or sitting mid-table, or somehow trying to get into the top half.
It's time for the game, guys. You thought I forgot, didn't you? The early days I did forget until about 25 minutes ago, so there you go. Right.
Which games did you watch this weekend?
I can't answer that question without being exposed as a massive fraud, so I'm not going to answer that question. This player Well, I didn't tell you what games I watched, so I'm not going to tell you what I was going to tell you. What's the score for this season so far? 2-0 to Kev?
No, I think it's 1.5.
It's no, you're getting the full point.
You begrudgingly gave me half.
You're getting the full point.
2-0 then.
I think, no, I'm on 2, haven't I?
Well, we've only played it twice. You're either giving me a point.
No, because the first week we played it twice. So I got a point and you got a point the first week.
Oh, so it's 2-1.
And then I got the point last week, didn't I?
Oh, well, no, because you gave it to me even though I forgot how to pronounce.
Oh, did I?
Magnanelli's name.
Right, you're right.
Thank you, Vito, because I was about to bastardise that again.
All right, yeah. So the points total is 2 to Kev, 1 to me, and 0 to Vito. Vito, I do really respect what you're doing here. I'll respect it even more if you give him the point this week, but I don't think you will. Anyway,
he's doing a Juve.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? So how do we work this? Just Kev goes first, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, Kev goes first.
Okay. Right, Kev, take it away.
Are they Italian?
No, they're not Italian.
Does this player play for a club in northern Italy?
Yes.
Is it a player from one of the clubs based in Milan?
No, it is not a player from a club in Milan.
Is it a player based in Turin?
No.
Is it an Atalanta player?
No.
Are they based in Genoa?
Can you rephrase your question, please?
Do they play for a club that plays in Genoa?
Yes, they do.
The answer's not going to be yes. So, do they play for Sampdoria?
Yes, they do.
Are they a attacker?
No, they are not. Vito, look at his face once he saw that it was a Sam player.
All right, is it a midfielder?
Yes.
Is it Morten Thorsby?
It is Morten Thorsby. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Congratulations. Vito, Doria is off the mark for the season, Kev. Good night. I'm afraid that is where your points total will probably stay for the remainder of the season.
It was nice that was so quick. I enjoyed that. Being
Fair enough. Right. Any more? Vito, have you anything to say?
No, that's it for this week.
Talk about Patreon.
Oh yes, of course. Yep. Go on patreon.com, look for Forza Italian Football. There are 3 options, so have a look out, and we appreciate the support. So the more the merrier, as they say, and thanks for listening, everyone.
Absolutely. Kev, have you anything else to say?
I hear the €5 option is very, very good for those that want to sign up.
The €5 option is very good, and shall I tell you why the €5 option is very good? Because last week, the €5 option, bear in mind, it's €5 for a month as well, right? So you're paying $125 a week, and last week you got 2 extra podcasts and a Serie A newsletter. If you sign up for the €2 tier, you will get 1 extra podcast and 1 newsletter a month, but you will get priority to questions for the podcast, of course. So that is a bonus, undoubtedly. But also, as if that wasn't enough, the €5 tier get free merchandise for absolutely no reason. We just send you stuff. So we've been sending out messages trying to get your addresses. Don't worry, we're not going to send Kev to your house. He doesn't even have my address, so he's not going to get yours. We just want to send you free things. And with the €10 tier, there is the potential to get one of the beautiful FIF mugs that myself and Vito Doria regularly drink out of, sometimes on the pod, sometimes just in our free time. So yeah, patreon.com/ForzaItalianFootball.com. Thank you to all of those who have signed up already. And those of you who are going to sign up soon, well, we look forward to seeing you over there. And we will speak to you on there very, very soon. We'll be back on Thursday with the preview podcast. So until then, patrons, goodbye.